Well, hello and welcome back to Faith, Philosophy and Life with me, Mr. Shelton. It's really great that you're with me and we're going to have an amazing time this session. I know that we are. Behind me is the Grotto at Lourdes. This is something that I'm sure many of you have studied about with Bernadette Soubirous and her vision, and that leads into her religious experience. And today we are thinking about religious experiences. And so this is the start of a new unit for many of us, and I am very grateful to have the opportunity to guide you on that unit, and we're going to spend the next few lessons looking at this. Before we continue any further, I am going to say a quick prayer. This is a usual approach for me. So without any further ado, let's cue our intro music. Okay, so hopefully that gave you a moment just to pause and listen to that music and to start to think what you know about religious experiences already. So our title today is What is a Religious Experience? If you're making notes, please get the title down. Titles are obviously really important to help you know where you're up to, especially next year when you come to revise. Now there's a thought. So our learning objective today is to understand what a religious experience is and how it changes people. So our outcomes, it's going to be a good outcome if we can describe what a religious experience is. It's going to be great if you can explain different examples of religious experience and say how they influence people. It's going to be even better if you can start to evaluate if you think religious experiences are real or just symbolic. And we're going to look at quite a lot over the next few lessons. Today is a bit more of the introduction, so hopefully I'm on a little bit more of familiar turf with you. So today we're going to do a mind map. We're going to look at specific religious experiences, look at some key terms, then focus in on one format of religious experience, which is conversions, and then we're going to look at a big question. And as per usual, we're going to throw some media clips in along the way. So without any further ado, here is the first media clip that we're going to watch today. This is an overview of what religious experience means, and I hope that you'll watch this and gain something from it. So random YouTube clip, 3, 2, 1, here we go.
Philosophers recognize that there are any number of beliefs which we cannot prove to be true, but nevertheless which we all accept and are rational in doing so because they're rooted in our experience. Examples would be the reality of the external world or the reality of the past. When you think about it, you can't prove either of those beliefs. There's no way to prove that you're not a brain in a vat of chemicals wired up with electrodes being stimulated by some mad scientist to think that you're here in this room seeing these objects that aren't really there. There's no way to know that the world wasn't created 5 minutes ago with built-in appearance of age, memory traces in our brains from events that never happened, food in our stomachs from the meals we never really ate. So that you cannot prove evidentially the reality of the external world or the reality of the past. And yet these are clearly rational beliefs, which we all have. You would be crazy, literally, if you thought that the world was created 5 minutes ago or that you were a brain in a vat. Philosophers call these properly basic beliefs. They are part of the foundations of a person's system of knowledge. But these beliefs aren't arbitrary. They're grounded in our experience, in the context of seeing and hearing and touching things. I form naturally the belief that there is an external world of physical objects which are real. And I am rational in holding to these beliefs in the absence of any reason to think that they are unreliable. Unless the skeptic can give me some good reason to think that I'm a brain in a vat or that these beliefs are otherwise unreliable, I'm perfectly within my rational rights to retain those beliefs. Now, I would similarly argue that belief in God is properly basic for those who genuinely know God. They have an immediate experience of God as an objective reality, bearing witness with their spirit that they are in relationship with Him, that they know Him, and that in the absence of some defeater, some reason to think that that experience is delusional, you are perfectly within your rights to go with that experience and to believe that that experience is what we would say is veridical, that is to say, is of an objective reality.
Great. So hopefully you found that quite useful, just to give you a flavour of what it is that we're looking at in this unit. Behind me is a mind map. If you'd rather do this as a bullet point list, please do so. What you will need to do in a moment is you will need to pause this clip. So I'd like you to come up with the different types of religious experiences that you might already be familiar with. Now, you might not be aware of any, I totally get that, but you might have some idea about what some of them are. So, for example, you might know miracles. That's a type of religious experience. It's something that happens in somebody's life. So make a mind map now, or bullet point list, of the different forms of religious experience you already know about. Hopefully you should be able to come up with about 6 or 7. Pause this clip now if you need to. Okay, now I do appreciate that for some of us at this point that might be quite difficult. Our brains might not be working very well. So let me give you these as a hint. The only problem is I've jumbled them up. So they are all religious experiences. They are anagrams, obviously. Again, pause this clip and let's see which of these you can work out. Okay, I wonder if you've got those. I'll just give you another moment. Okay, so the answers then, you've got prayer at the top, then you've got Holy Book, the Bible, then you've got natural world, then you've got miracles, then you've got personal experience, and then you've got religious leaders. Okay, so prayer, Holy Book, the Bible, natural world, miracles, personal experience, and religious leaders. And all of those are examples of religious experience. I've then put those around a mind map, and what I'd like you to do is now going around each of those to write how it is that those things may reflect a religious experience. So how are those religious experiences and what do they show to the person involved? So just go around those now and just write a couple of notes about how they might be classed as religious experiences. Okay, so behind me then is a bit more information that might help you. So again, pause this clip and get some of that down around your mind map. So there's a little bit more information there. There's no point copying it. I always say that in my clips to you, but it is worth bullet pointing down some information if you didn't already have those. So again, pause this clip now and get a few more in notes written around your mind map. Okay, so our big questions then today is, when you think about these religious experiences, how do they influence people? And how do they even know if they're real or not? How can you justify what a miracle is? And how can you say, for example, that you've had an epiphany, an enlightenment, a moment of awe and wonder in the natural world, for example? How do you know that's God rather than just your brain ticking over? And that's what we're going to be thinking about right at the end of this clip, and that's going to flow through lots of other parts of this course as well, especially when you get to miracles as well later in the course. So I'm going to give you a little bit of information, but let's just recap that our learning objective was to know what a religious experience is and how it changes people. So hopefully we've got some ideas now about what a religious experience is and the categories that that's in. And we need to now start to just flesh out a little bit more information on that. So these are some really key bits of information for you. Okay, that 30 to 40% of people claim to have had a religious experience. That could be a mystical experience or a spiritual experience or a religious experience as well. So that's a very broad category. I get that, because we're not just talking about people that would claim to be Christians that have this moment. We're talking about anyone that has that spine-tingling moment where they suddenly realize something for the first time. Now, some examples of religious experience, and there are many examples that I could come up with, are things like a call, which is what a lot of vicars or priests would say that they've had. They've had that vocation, that niggling at the back of their mind that this is what they should be doing. teachers quite often would say that they have a call, but it's not necessarily a religious call. It's more of something that they would necessarily want to do. Whereas within a religious experience, it's something they're called to do. Something that, for example, Paul, when he or Saul, should I say, when he became Paul, he had that conversion experience, which we'll come on to a little bit later. That's an example of a call on his life where he was doing something and then did something else. So a conversion experience is when somebody basically changes their faith. But not only do they change their faith, they change the way they do things. So, for example, there was someone I knew, let's call him Bruce, because that wasn't his name, who was from Glasgow. Bruce was definitely not a Christian. He enjoyed dropping bottles from the top of a high-rise flats block. And he would drop bottles from the top of that out of his window to see who he could hit below. Bruce was not a nice bloke, and I'm not making him up. He was a great influence when I was growing up, not because of the bottle dropping thing. Bruce became a Christian, and he said overnight his life transformed. He believed that God had called him to work with young people, which is how I knew him, rather than the bottle dropping thing. And he then went on to do an amazing ministry where he helped hundreds and hundreds of young people around the country. So that's an example of a conversion experience where someone believed something or didn't and then became a Christian or a member of another faith, and that changed their outlook and changed everything they did. A dream then, okay, so an example of a dream which we'll think about a little bit later, okay, was the example that Joseph had, which is Joseph as in Mary's husband, where they escaped to Egypt. Some of you may know that. I'll come back to that on the next slide. Then you've got meditational, the idea that Buddhists have, where they go into a transcendent state, where they meditate and they focus on their breath. And that is classed as a religious experience as well, where they have that stillness and peace of mind. If you've never done mindfulness, then it's something that may be worth looking in, especially in this time that we're in. A miraculous event then is a miracle, something that is supernatural, goes against the laws of nature. You've got near death, and you may have heard of near-death experiences where somebody's dying on the operating table and they float up and they see themselves and it's kind of like their soul looking down, and then they go straight back into their body, and that's what's called a near-death experience. There's again, that comes up later in the course. There's the numinous experience. Numinous is a whole thing for another lesson. That's next lesson, which is about the holy other being aware of something greater around you. There's reincarnation memories. Okay, there's some amazing stories on YouTube about reincarnation memories, where people remember, for example, there's one that's a boy that remembers being a fighter pilot in World War II. Really interesting clip, worth googling. And then nature as well, that idea that you see the sunrise and you think wow, and that shiver goes down your spine. And maybe you're on the top of a hill and you just realize how beautiful things are. So a little bit more information coming up then with another random YouTube clip. So over to you, random YouTube clip. Go.
A spider web is tangled up with me, and I lost my head and thought of all the stupid things I'd said. And I'm caught in the middle, so I turn to run and thought of all the stupid things I'd done. And I never meant spun a web for me. They spun a web for me. They spun a web for me.
Okay, so welcome back. I hope that was helpful for you. We're going to look at a few key terms now. Now, it's really important that you get these written down and that you understand them. These are 4 different versions of a religious experience. So there's a corporal religious experience. This is an empirical religious experience. That's one seen by sense. So it's the idea of God being there through nature. So that's what I've talked about in terms of the mountaintop, the sunset, the moment you just have that moment of awe and wonder where you're witnessing something with your own eyes, where you're not seeing God. Can I make that very clear? What you're doing is you're having a sense of something bigger. That's what a corporal experience is. A corporeal vision is a physical sense of sight. So for those of you who know anything about Bernadette Souvreau at Lourdes, she had a vision of Mary, the mother of Jesus. If you have got no idea what I'm talking about, then I strongly recommend again that you do a little bit of research on Bernadette Souvreau from Lourdes, Lourdes. That's a corporeal vision, which is a physical sense of sight. So it's not just a sense, which is a corporal, where you've just got a feeling. It's something a lot greater than that. It's something you could then describe to others. There's an imaginative vision, and that's where the experience has got absolutely no power to control it. So in Genesis chapter 41, Joseph in the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, it was red and yellow and grey. Anyway, yeah. So Pharaoh in that, do you remember Pharaoh, the Elvis fellow? If you've got no idea what I'm looking at, look for the Really Useful Company on YouTube and look for Pharaoh from Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. Anyway, Pharaoh had a dream. He had no control over it whatsoever. He had a dream of 7 fat cows and 7 thin cows, and the thin cows ate the fat cows. He thought they would do good, but they didn't. They stayed thin. And that was a prophecy of the future. In Matthew chapter 2, verse 13 to 15, Joseph, I mentioned this earlier, different Joseph, Mary's husband, had a vision that of an angel that told him that King Herod was going to go and kill Jesus and hunt them, so they had to escape to Egypt. Again, Joseph had no control over that, but he woke up and he then immediately took the Holy Family to Egypt. So that's an imaginative vision. Then you've got an intellectual vision. So that's the vision without any visual image, where the experience is an illumination of your soul. It just makes sense, like an epiphany or an enlightenment. You can't describe it in normal language. It just makes sense. It's not quite the same as a corporal experience, because a corporal experience, you have that sense of it. Whereas an intellectual vision is something that happens to you, but there's not necessarily any image of God, where there is an illumination of the soul. It is an epiphany or an enlightenment, but it can't be described in normal everyday terms. So those two are slightly different. And again, if you're not entirely sure on that, then grab a book and do a little bit of research between corporal and intellectual visions. But the key thing for you to be aware of is that there are these 4 examples, and they are very useful ones for you to be aware of. So make sure you've got those notes down. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is I'd like you just to turn, if you've got the AQA book. If you don't have the AQA book, then just skip straight on. But if you've got the AQA book and that's what you're working on, look at pages 87 to 94. And I'd like you just to have a quick gander through that and identify which philosophers, scholars, keywords and writings that you can see. If you don't have that book, send an email to your teacher, see if they've got a copy of it or got access, because I know during lockdown there are information that we do have available that we can share with you. So look at page 87 to 94 and just make a few more notes of what philosophers, scholars, keywords and writings can you see. Don't go any further than that, because that will step on toes of other lessons. But this is, as I say, an introduction for religious experience. So pause this clip and do that now. Perfect. So what we've done so far is we've understood what religious experience is and how it changes people. We said it'd be good if we could describe what a religious experience is, We said it'd be great if we could give different examples of religious experience and how they influence or change people. I think we've done that fairly well. And we're going to start to think about if we think religious experiences are real or not, or if they're just symbolic. So does a religious experience, for example, looking at a conversion experience where we're going on to, is that something that actually needs to happen to you? So there was a girl called Christine Vogt, V-O-G-T. There are some stuff on YouTube, but I couldn't find the exact clip I wanted, so I left that one off, who said that she had been taking drugs, she had fallen in a really bad place, and she ended up going to the cinema to see the Passion of the Christ film, the one by Mel Gibson. And when she saw that film, she said she felt really humbled. She burst out crying in the middle of the cinema, and she came out and she changed her life. She became a Christian, read the Bible, the entire New Testament in 4 days, and she just said how different her life was afterwards. Now, some would say that that wasn't a religious experience, that was just her brain giving her the excuse of changing because she wanted to change anyway. However, in situations like Bruce, where he clearly did have an experience he believed, Christine clearly believed she had an experience, and the next one I'm going to show you had a significant experience. So I'm going to show you a clip from Nikki Cruz. Some of you may have heard of Nikki Cruz. He was a gangster in New York, one of the most notorious ones, and this is his story. So I'd like you to watch this now.
You can get high in sex, you can get high in alcohol, you can get high in all kinds of drugs. I was high in hate and bound.
When Nikki Cruz showed up on the scene, people had every reason to run and hide. He wasn't just the leader of the renowned Mau Mau's, the toughest gang in New York City. Nikki was an animal.
New York City was a jungle. The law of the jungle, you behave like an animal. An animal don't know the difference between right and wrong. An animal has to kill another animal for survival.
So did you ever kill somebody?
I cannot answer that question. But I can say that again, yes, we did it together.
Pain and violence weren't anything new to Nikki. He grew up with it in Puerto Rico, where his parents brutally abused him. Nikki's father used to throw him in a room with pigeons.
He put me there naked, and I used to scream, and the pigeon used to get scared, and they crashed me all over.
And Nikki's mother?
She hit me so much, and she knocked me out unconscious so many times over and over, that honestly to that, if I grab a knife and I put it, I didn't feel the pain anymore.
It wasn't just because they were cruel. They were possessed.
I know that I was planted into the wounds of a witch.
Seances, satanic worship, animal sacrifices. They were all a normal part of his parents' lives.
I saw my mother possessed by the devil many times. My mother had to eat everything when she was under the influence of Satan. So my dad, all those animal sacrifice, all the blood that was shared, and the smell that was of the repulsive, and the spirit that used to manifest, it was scary.
So when he hit the streets of New York, Nikki was a hardened man, void of love, full of hate.
I want to do to others what my mother did to me, period. I want to know how it feels to get hurt. And I used to feel good when I used to hurt some people.
But alone in his tiny apartment in the projects, he didn't feel good.
Privately, when I was alone, loneliness became like a seductive woman that would crawl inside of my chest and eat me. And I was there twisting and fighting, and I felt so lost. The most that you can live in the way I used to live is 20 years. And I was 19 already. 1 year, I'll be dead.
Only 2 people saw the desperate condition of Nikki's heart. One was a psychologist.
He told me about fight time. There's a dark side in your life that nobody can penetrate. Nikki, you're walking straight to jail, the electric chair and hell, and there's no hope.
The other was a pastor named David Wilkerson. He risked his life to tell Nikki there was hope.
I heard this voice, God has the power to change your life, and I start cursing loud.
You come near me, I'll kill you.
I spit at his face and I hit him. And I told him, I don't believe in what you're saying, and you get out of here.
Nikki never expected what he heard Wilkerson say next.
You could cut me up into 1,000 pieces and lay them in the street. And every piece will still love you.
It did damage good in my brain. And in my heart, I began to question. And for 2 weeks, I could not sleep thinking about love.
Nikki and his gang showed up at one of Wilkerson's rallies, and one by one, they gave their lives to Christ. It was the crucifixion, Jesus' death on the cross, that grabbed Nikki.
I never heard it. And I fell for him.
When he died on that cross, he was a man like you. You had the same fears and the same feelings that you have.
A little boy began to think about where I was hurt. I was choked up with pain, and my eyes were fighting, and tears began to come down, and more tears, and I was fighting. And then I surrendered, and then I let Jesus hug me, and I let my head rest on his chest. I said, okay, I'm sorry, forgive me. And for the first time, I told somebody, I love you. And I told her, I love you, Jesus.
The love Nikki got in return radically changed his life.
And when I opened my eyes, I got a new heart. I have been born again. I'm a child of the Lord.
Nikki left the gang scene. He enrolled in Bible college and met Gloria. The two married and moved back to New York City, where they ran Teen Challenge, a program to help troubled teens. Since then, Nikki has raised 4 girls and traveled all over the world as an evangelist and head of Nikki Cruz Ministries.
I am the most happy human being, because I have reached thousands or perhaps millions of people that have come to Jesus through my message. But the greatest success of my life, it was when I brought my mother to Jesus, and my father and my brother.
Nikki chose to forgive his parents, and he asked them to forgive him. Nikki writes about this in his latest book, Soul Obsession.
When true forgiveness comes in, and it comes out from you, your soul, forgive me, that dark cloud will disappear, will be cracked down into pieces. And then you have access straight to the heart of Christ.
Once an animal filled with hate, today he's a lover of souls. Now if you met Nikki Cruz on the streets, you probably wouldn't run from him. You'd run to him, and here's what he might say.
I say to you that you can turn all of this deep pain and this hurt and this deep rejection and do what I did. Give it to Christ, and you're gonna be more happy with your life.
Hopefully there was some food for thought there. I would strongly suggest that you take some notes about Nikki Cruz's conversion experience, because it is an experience that you can use very clearly in your essays. So we're now on our final objective. You've now got some examples to do. So we're going to end it with this. There's a big question for you to answer, and that brings everything to a close today. So, are religious experiences just in people's minds? That's the question. Are religious experiences just in people's minds? So do you wake up and want to be different? Is it just your brain kicking back? So to do this, let's not structure it as a massive evaluation question. Let's just do 3 quick paragraphs. Your opinion, the opposite viewpoint, and then some sort of conclusion as well, where you can bring evidence in. Use your work that you've got. I'll leave that with you. Pause this clip, obviously. Take care. Wash hands. Stay safe. God bless. And I'll see you in a few days for Numinous. Thanks for your time today. Keep well.